Tonight, the Senate prepares for a confirmation vote for Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett, the latest on the push to confirm the judge ahead of the election. And
people are pandemicked out.
As coronavirus fatigue sets in, cases across the country spike. The second wave many states are facing. Plus, young Christian girls being targeted by sex traffickers.
We figure out who those girls are that are being sold, and we push that information to law enforcement to take action.
How ministries are stepping up to help law enforcement protect young girls. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Countdown to confirmation. The fight over the nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett soon comes to a close. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder. Judge Barrett making the rounds on Capitol Hill today, meeting with Republican senators ahead of her confirmation vote set for early next week. Barrett has the votes needed to be confirmed and is expected to sail through smoothly.
But Jenna, the political stakes are still high, says one senator who'll be voting in her favor. CBN's Paul Strand explains in tonight's top story.
Amy Coney Barrett is visiting senators this week who will be joining colleagues to vote on her confirmation Monday. With Democrats saying she should not have even been nominated this close to the election, Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz begs to differ.
29 times there's been a Supreme Court vacancy during a presidential election year. Presidents have nominated someone to those vacancies all 29 times. Doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you're a president, you make that nomination. What has the Senate done? Well, 19 of those times, the president and the Senate were of the same party. Of those, the Senate confirmed 17 of them.
On the 700 Club Wednesday, Cruz also told host Pat Robertson why he declined to become a nominee each time a high court vacancy is opened up during President Trump's term.
A principal judge stays out of political fights. A principal judge stays out of policy fights. If I were ever a judge, that's what I'd do. I'd stay out of these fights. I don't want to stay out of them. I think there is a desperate need in the political arena.
That's great.
We need people to fight for our liberties.
Cruz's new book, One Vote Away, How a Single Supreme Court Seat Can Change History, shows just how crucial the makeup of the court is, as are the elections that decide that makeup.
This election we've got in November, the stakes we've got here are fundamental rights. On the question of abortion, we're one vote away from the court striking down every restriction on abortion across the country and mandating the Democrats' policy position, which is unlimited abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, partial birth abortion with no parental consent, no parental notification, and full taxpayer funding.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
All right, thank you, Paul. Meanwhile, hope remains tonight that a coronavirus relief deal can be made ahead of the election, despite the coming and going of yesterday's deadline imposed by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Today, conversations continued between Pelosi and the White House.
We're at the table, conversations are happening, and I think it's kind of the best place we've been in, so cautious optimism that we're going to have a deal.
And White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told Fox Business he is hopeful for a deal within the next 48 hours.
Well, just 13 days until the presidential election and 1 day until the candidates face off for their final debate tomorrow. How are they preparing? Well, this week, President Trump has been crisscrossing the country hosting rallies while Joe Biden hunkers down in debate prep mode. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us now. Ben, what's the latest on the campaign trail?
Well, John, with less than 2 weeks left of the election, Biden is leading Trump in most polls. It is a very close race, though, in North Carolina. That is where a Washington Post ABC News poll finds Biden at 49% and Trump at 48% among likely voters, the two in a bit of a dead heat in the battleground state. A new USA Today Suffolk University poll has Biden ahead of the commander-in-chief by 7 points in Pennsylvania. Today, Trump took aim at Biden's tax plan, writing, "He's going to raise your taxes at a level never seen before. This will not only be very costly to you, it'll destroy our economy, which is coming back very rapidly." Former President Obama is making his first in-person campaign event for Biden. Obama will hold a drive-in car rally today in Philadelphia on behalf of his former VP. Obama is expected to make a personal pitch to supporters and encourage early voting.
In times as polarized as these, your vote doesn't just matter. It matters more than ever before.
Now, we have not seen Biden publicly at a campaign rally this week as he continues to debate prep in Delaware. As for President Trump, he's on the campaign trail again tonight. He'll be in North Carolina for a campaign rally. John?
All right. Thank you, Ben. And joining us now, CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody. David, let's start with the polls Ben mentioned. Biden, leading in most national and state polls. Quinnipiac, though, out with a new poll that it's a dead heat in Texas, of all places. David, we saw how wrong most of the polls were in 2016. This time around, how much stock do you put in these kind of polls?
I'm still in the 2016 camp, Jenna and John. I think the polling hasn't changed much. As a matter of fact, if you do a deep dive into the polls, you don't see much of that change. Once again, back to those non-college educated voters. Most of the polls, not all of them, but most of the polls don't factor in that key subset group. And so here we are again in 2016. We'll have to wait and see. I will tell you this, when it comes to turnout, we're about to find out a big difference between Joe Biden doing a lot on the airwaves versus the Donald Trump campaign. They're doing quite a bit on the ground. So it's the ground game that they're doing much better. The Trump campaign doing much better on the ground versus Biden, but the Biden campaign doing much better on the airwaves. Now we're about to find out in this election which tactic won or will win.
Yeah, David, Biden doing well on the airways because of that huge cash advantage that they have over the Trump campaign. Turning now to tomorrow's big night, the commission has taken steps to prevent the presidential deathmatch debate debacle we all saw during the first debate. What will you be looking for this time around, David, as the candidates make their pitches to voters in their final face-to-face debate?
Well, here's the good news for Donald Trump. We're going to hear more of Joe Biden. And this is exactly what the campaign wanted him to do last time, but he just couldn't. Let's just be honest. He couldn't shut up. And now he's going to be forced to shut up this time, at least for a portion of the debate. It's funny, the media kind of wants to throttle him. Social media wants to throttle him. Well, finally, guess what? The only way apparently you can mute Donald Trump is to literally mute his mic. And that's exactly what's going to happen in the debate hall on Thursday. So the Trump campaign believes that if you let Joe Biden talk more, he's going to mess up. He'll say something that seems somewhat incoherent, and that'll be a boon for Trump. We'll see. But let's also remember, as it relates to this debate, those mics are only going to be muted for 2 minutes for each person at the beginning of each segment. So we're going to not have muted mics for a good portion of this debate. So it could turn into a bit of a free-for-all ultimately.
So NBC's Kristen Welker will moderate. David, do you think she'll cover any new ground? So far we've not seen a lot of issues like abortion or the Second Amendment addressed in these debates. Also, will Biden be pressed on certain issues that he's not really addressing, court packing and the alleged scandal involving his son?
Well, it will be journalistic malpractice if Kristen Welker doesn't open up the debate with questions about Hunter Biden and everything going on swirling as it relates to censorship and Facebook and Twitter and all of that. I mean, it's out there. The whole thing is out there. It's become a big national story, even beyond the conservative echo chamber. So how does she not ask about it? So I think that she's got to do that. I will say this, that ultimately what networks like they got to be able to ask more questions.
All right. CBN's David Brody. Thanks so much, David.
Thanks, David. Well, to the latest on the coronavirus and a fast-moving wave of cases across the country. The U.S. reporting more than 60,000 new positive tests yesterday, marking the third straight day of growing numbers. CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips joins us now. Eric, these numbers staggering.
Yeah, and Jenna, here's another startling statistic for you from the CDC. COVID-19 has played a major factor in 300,000 more deaths so far this year than we would typically see in any regular year. 300,000 more deaths, and we still have more than 2 months left in 2020 and less than 2 weeks until the presidential election.
Pandemic. They're getting tired of the pandemic, aren't they? Getting tired of the pandemic. You turn on CNN, that's all they cover. COVID, pandemic, COVID. You know why? They're trying to talk everybody out of voting. People aren't buying it.
But the numbers speak for themselves. Cases are on the rise in 44 states and U.S. territories, with an average of 57,000 new cases a day. That's the highest rate since this summer's surge. The latest White House coronavirus task force report puts 31 states in its red zone for cases, up from 26 states last week. In Kansas, word that all 62 residents of a nursing home have tested positive for COVID, with 10 deaths, including Robert Brooks's 68-year-old uncle.
Nobody's been allowed to go up there and visit family, and so I haven't really personally got to go see him. But one of my friends worked there, and he said, you know, he gave a message to my uncle, and he says, oh, your uncle said he loves you and he misses you. And then the next day, like the next morning after hearing that, he passed.
This latest uptick putting a stress on hospital resources and staffers.
We're human. Our emotions get to us. Sorry. It's just hard to see.
We have patients who are dying alone, with the only people at their bedside is their clinical teams, because they can't have family. And
the World Health Organization is reporting that more than 36,000 people died worldwide from COVID last week alone. 2.4 million were infected. Officials bracing everyone for a difficult winter season.
This is not a disease that spares anybody. And there has been this kind of drumbeat of, oh, it's only the elderly. First of all, that would be bad enough. But second, it's all of us.
And on the vaccine front, Brazilian health officials say a volunteer with the clinical trial for the COVID vaccine developed by AstraZeneca has died. However, testing of that vaccine will continue despite that. John, Jenna.
Sobering report. Thank you, Eric. Well, coming up, history-making moves toward peace in the Middle East. The latest on the relationship between Israel and its Arab neighbors and what it means for the region. Next.
This election night, with a country divided and America's future hanging in the balance, go to a place you can trust. CBN News. CBN News presents an election night special with live coverage starting at 7 p.m. Get live updates on each of the campaigns, plus analysis on the shifting balance of power. Watch November 3rd at 7 p.m. on the CBN News Channel or download the CBN News app. CBN News, because truth matters. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
And welcome back. Well, a new escalation in U.S. tensions with China. Today, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announcing new restrictions against some Chinese media organizations. The U.S. will now designate 6 government-backed Chinese media groups as foreign missions, calling the companies fronts for propaganda.
Owned or effectively controlled by a foreign government. We're not placing any restrictions on what these outlets can publish in the United States. We simply want to ensure that American people, consumers of information, can differentiate between news written by a free press and propaganda distributed by the Chinese Communist Party itself.
And shortly after making the announcement, Pompeo tweeting, "The American people deserve to know what these outlets are and whom they work for."
Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hosted a three-way meeting Tuesday with Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin and the Financial Affairs Minister of the United Arab Emirates.
As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, it's the latest step in the growing ties between Israel and the Gulf Arab states after this summer's historic agreements.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hosted the meeting just after the first commercial flight ever from the UAE landed at Israel's Ben Gurion Airport.
Today, we are making history. We are making history in a way that will stand for generations. This is the first ever official visit from the United Arab Emirates to Israel. This is the first time since the signing of the historic agreement in the White House that the government of Israel and the UAE will be signing concrete, practical agreements of cooperation.
We are committed to support legal framework for the movement of people and goods and for fostering a continuous business-friendly environment between the UAE and the State of Israel.
On Monday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin attended signings of memoranda of understanding in Abu Dhabi between the UAE and Israeli companies. On Sunday, Mnuchin joined Israeli officials on the first El Al flight ever to land in Bahrain. Bahrain joined the UAE at the last minute in signing the Abraham Accords in Washington in September.
Today, we build on that historic occasion at the White House last month, taking the next steps to implement the declaration in support of peace and the Abraham Accords.
The opportunities here are quite enormous, both economic, trade, investment, cultural, and security between the three countries.
Israel and Bahrain signed a joint communique on establishing peaceful and diplomatic relations on Sunday. U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman said they were in the land of Abraham, where his sons Isaac and Ishmael had reconciled 3,500 years ago.
Today, we're bringing the Bible back to life. The children of Isaac and the children of Ishmael are reconciling once again in this holy land and in Bahrain and in the United Arab Emirates as well. It's another historic day among many historic days that the Trump administration has brought to this region.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
All right, thank you, Chris. Human trafficking in America, why those fighting on the front line say Christian girls are at risk, when Fake Nation returns.
Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Watch On the Home Front today at 2:30.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
CBN News presents an election night special with live coverage starting at 7 p.m. Get updates on the campaigns, plus analysis on the shifting balance of power. Watch on the CBN News Channel or on the CBN News app.
Well, welcome back. Sex trafficking is an epidemic enslaving innocent children worldwide, and here in the United States, at least 65,000 kids are victims.
Now, a chilling new warning. Predators are targeting Christian girls in particular. Chuck Holton looks at why and what's being done to stop it.
The numbers keep coming week by week. In Ohio, a joint operation between federal and state officers recovered 35 at-risk missing children. A similar operation rescued 39 missing kids in Georgia. Behind all this success, a unit of the U.S. Marshal Service, the Sex Offender Investigations Branch, is made up of only 3 men working overtime to save as many kids as they can.
When I assumed this position as the branch chief of this Sex Offender Investigations Branch, my eyes were opened. There's over 430,000 missing kids a year in our country.
Of those, at least 65,000 are victims of the commercial sex industry.
We're trying to have an impact. We're trying to do the best we can with the resources we have in place.
Ongoing riots and violence against federal courthouses in Portland and elsewhere, however, are taking agents away from this important work.
But it's a zero-sum game. In order for us to deploy these resources, it detracts from other mission sets that are often equally as important. Our leadership is very passionate and supportive of this initiative, and we're trying to throw as many resources as we can to make an impact, but the reality is we're just scratching the surface.
These operations are also complicated because those rescued need special care.
Historically, we're cops and we catch bad guys, but we're catching good people now, we're catching kids. What resources do we need to have in place? Because it's not as simple as just turning this child over to somebody. And so we spent a lot of time, a lot of research, a lot of talking with our partners, with Children's Hospital, with DCFS, with social services, to get these resources in place.
It takes an incredible amount of work to track down these monsters who are preying on America's children. And since the defund the police movement and the COVID crisis, a lot of police departments around the country just don't have the resources to do that. And that's where the body of Christ comes in. There are several ministries out there that are now packaging up the information that cops need and passing it along. One of them is All Things Possible Ministries, Victor Marx's outfit. His new chief operating officer is a guy that I went to Ranger School with like 100 years ago.
There are 150,000 new sex ads a day in America. They need help on the front end identifying the victim. They need that level of probable cause, reasonable suspicion. That's what we offer law enforcement. So we figure out who those girls are that are being sold, potentially who their trafficker is, and we push that information to law enforcement to take action. And then they will conduct an operation, a sting, and they will confront that girl and offer her a new life, a path to freedom.
And what they find is often chilling.
There are particular traffickers that will target Christian girls to get the small potatoes, to get the girl who comes from a broken, abusive relationship. That didn't stroke his ego. But for him to be able to pluck a pretty young woman from a Christian family in the suburbs and turn her out to be trafficked, that was an ego boost for him.
The Trump administration is taking action to put a stop to these heinous crimes.
Today, I'm happy to announce that the department is awarding over $100 million in grants across the country targeted at human trafficking. And these grants are going to support state, local, and tribal jurisdictions, victim service providers, task forces, and key research initiatives.
Being on the front lines makes these men realize law enforcement isn't the ultimate solution.
We, as believers, we have to do a better job of protecting our young women. Parents have to talk to their daughters very candidly about what's out there, especially in this Christian bubble that a lot of us live in. We don't fully appreciate the evil that's out there and the evil that's trying to work its way into our lives.
We as a society need to look at this large number and start deploying resources and asking questions as to why there are so many missing kids. What are the underlying issues? And it's only then that we can address those and stop these high numbers. We're very happy about our recoveries, but there's a much larger problem that needs to be addressed and addressed holistically.
From Washington, D.C., I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Giving back by getting to work. Still ahead, how some parents are building a better school experience for their kids.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're going to bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come with...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Finally tonight, there are a lot of challenges that go along with remote learning. For some kids, that includes not having a desk at home where they can do their schoolwork.
And that's put pressure on some parents to be creative and to show their handiwork. Many mobilizing putting their skills to use by building desks for kids who need a place to sit for in-home schooling. In some cases, made for as little as $20. Some parents have posted YouTube videos to teach others how to put them together. And one dad says it's been the best way he could help kids in his community during this trying school year.
Yeah, building a better future, quite literally.
Indeed.
Well, that's going to do it for Faith Nation this evening.
Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.